Hello, my name is Ben Stark, and these are the trees of Black Mountain. To start this project, I just stepped out onto my back patio just to see what was going on in the immediate vicinity. And I was surprised to find that just in this one small portion of my backyard, there were 4 different tree species. Working from the left to the right, we have a sourwood. Oh, there's my mouse. We have a sourwood here, a pin oak, a red pine, and this tree in the background is a white oak. We'll go ahead and start with the sourwood. The bark of the sourwood is very distinct. It has these deep furrows running through it. It's very unique, and in areas where the bark is broken off, you can see that the wood underneath is a reddish brown color. Now during the autumn, the leaves of these trees turn a vibrant red color. Unfortunately, we're not quite far along enough yet to see that, but it is quite beautiful when they do turn. In this picture on the right here, you can see that the flower buds of these trees grow on a long stem called a raceme, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And sourwood honey, which is produced from the nectar of the sourwood tree, is considered a delicacy. It wasn't something I was aware of, but it sounds pretty good. And one use for the sourwood was Native Americans used to use sourwood to make arrow shafts. Taking a look at the range of the sourwood, it tends to hang out mostly in the southeastern part of the United States. It runs from the southwestern corner of Pennsylvania down through West Virginia, and got serious coverage here in western North Carolina where we're at, and down through South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and a little bit down here in the northern part of Florida. Moving right along, we've got the pin oak. The bark of the pin oak is quite a bit smoother than the sourwood. Its furrows aren't anywhere near as deep. It's a pretty sturdy bark that this tree has on it. The leaves of the pin oak are also quite distinct. Initially, I thought that this was a turkey oak, but upon further research, I realized that the acorns that appear here are not turkey oak acorns. They're just your typical average acorn. So it's definitely a pin oak. But on these leaves, we've got sharp points, and at the end of each point are bristles. The average height for these trees is anywhere between 59 and 72 feet. And as far as their use in commercial applications, it's mainly construction and firewood. It's often marketed as red oak, although pin oak wood is substantially lower quality as far as strength than red oak is. So looking at the range of the pin oak, we've got some smatterings here kind of along the East Coast, New Jersey, Massachusetts, a little bit in New York, and it starts to build up a little bit more as you move west, getting into the Midwest, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. You've got substantial coverage, and down into Kentucky and Tennessee, and all the way over into Missouri and Arkansas. Taking a look at the red pine now, the bark of the red pine is unique. It's got deep furrows, but the furrows are more broadly spaced than you would see in the sourwood. And the bark itself lies in flat, large, flaky patches that you can peel off just with your fingers if you choose to. And doing that reveals the red color of the wood underneath. Here's a picture of a pine cone that I took from under the tree. Is roughly 2 inches in length, and these trees are generally used commercially for lumber and paper. Taking a look at the range of the red pine, it's quite a bit farther north than we've seen with the pin oak or the sourwood. It ranges from Nova Scotia through southeastern Canada, We've got coverage here in Maine, New York, and then moving across the Great Lakes into Minnesota and Michigan. And the fourth tree in the backyard was the white oak, quite a bit smaller than the three other trees that we looked at. And here's a picture of the bark here on the right. Unlike the pin oak, the bark on the white oak is quite a bit flakier. And these trees can generally grow between 80 and 100 feet tall. They can get pretty large. The placement for this one isn't actually great. It's pretty close to the side of the road, so it's going to need lots of room for its root structure once it starts growing taller. Comparing the leaves of the white oak to the pin oak, the points on the white oak leaves are rounded compared to the sharp points of the pin oak, and these leaves lack bristles that the pin oak has. The white oak does produce acorns, but not in substantial amounts until it reaches about the age of 50, and I'm guessing that this tree isn't quite there yet. It's a smaller tree, and that probably has to do with its age. It might also have to do with elevation. In some of my research, it's stated that white oaks have a more difficult time growing to greater heights at higher elevations. Black Mountain is somewhere around 2,000 feet, so that might contribute to it, but I think it's mostly just age at this point for this specific tree. And uses for the white oak include interior finishes, barrel making, wine in particular, and shipbuilding. And a fun little fact with that, the USS Constitution is made partially out of white oak. Taking a look at the range of the white oak definitely has the largest range by far out of any of the four trees we've looked at so far. It's stretching from southern Maine all the way down to northern Florida, across to East Texas, and then back on up to Minnesota. So it's got pretty substantial coverage. It's basically the eastern half of the United States. You won't have a hard time finding these trees. Oh, and another fun little fact, there was a white oak in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, known as the Great White Oak, which grew to be roughly 600 years old. So these trees can get pretty big, and they can stick around for quite a while. And the last tree on our list wasn't in the backyard, but in fact it was across the street. This is an eastern hemlock. The bark of these trees is flaky, and it has shallow fissures throughout. This tree grows to a height of 100 feet on average. In this picture on the left here, you can see the needles and the seed cones of this tree. The seed cones are very small, and they have very thin scales, and the needles are quite a bit shorter than your typical, pine tree, and they are flat. Commercial uses for this tree include construction, paper production, and production of crates, oddly enough. And one unique trait of this tree is that the wood grips railroad spikes particularly well, which makes them ideal for use as railroad ties. So I thought that was kind of neat. Taking a look at the range of the eastern hemlock, this is another northern tree. It's got total coverage in Nova Scotia, working its way down through Maine, New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Hits right here in western North Carolina where we're at, and little spots throughout the Midwest and East Coast. And then it also has a huge swath going across southeastern Canada and the Great Lakes, hitting Michigan and Wisconsin. And that's a little rundown of my sources. And that about does it. I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and hope you have a good evening. Thank you.